Monster Hunter. Wait, I said Monster Hunter. Whoa. Honkai Star. That's how much I've been enjoying Monster Hunter Wilds. Honkai Star is an insult to turn-based games. I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I have been locked in with Monster Hunter Wilds. If you guys haven't noticed recently, I've been posting a lot of Monster Hunter Wilds content. I am literally making a series on the channel here. It's really fun, man. I've been enjoying it. But this video got sent to me on my Discord. Somebody wanted me to react to this video. It's called Starro is an insult to turn-based games. I don't even know who this person is. I never watched your video before, but this video got recommended to me by one of my Discord. So we're gonna go ahead and react to it. And let me tell you guys one thing. All right, let me tell you guys one thing. I know there's gonna be people out there that are gonna say, well, you know, if you don't care about Honkai Star Rail, then why are you still talking about the game? Listen, listen. I don't give a flying fuck. Okay? I don't care if this game ends up dying. I don't care if this game ends up succeeding. If the game actually ends up succeeding, if the devs actually fix this game by version 3.2, congratulations. I'm going to play the game again. But as up to right now, I'm at a point where I literally just I don't care about Honkai Star Rail. I literally don't care about the game to the point where I am waiting for version 3.2 to drop. And if it's actually bad, I am literally uninstalling the game. Like, I'm waiting for version 3.2 so I can uninstall the game. The reason why I'm not going to uninstall it yet is because I'm giving the devs one more chance. I'm giving them one more chance to redeem themselves. And if they can't do that by version 3.2, say goodbye. But let's go and react to this, guys. Let's go and see this video and see what this guy has to say.
Stop saying that your Jingyuan cleared when in reality your Sunday and Robin or RMC dragged his lifeless corpse to the finish line. But can we stop being
But
allergic
let's
to
restart
having
that.
a
I'm not
better
gonna lie,
game?
his mic is the quality of his mic is kind of
Stop
high.
saying that your Jingyuan cleared when in reality your Sunday and Robin or RMC dragged his lifeless corpse to the finish line. But can we stop being
Ooh, that's already a banger. What a good start. I cannot stand whenever we talk about MOC and how bad it is, like MOC 10 being way more difficult than MOC 12. The counter argument that these HSR shows would bring to the table is, well, my Jingyuin was able to beat it, and my Blade was able to beat it. Okay, which characters did you use with your Blade and Jingyuin? Which characters did you use with them? Did you use Sparkle? No. You used Sunday. You use literally the most overpowered support characters with these DPS units. If you don't use these support characters with them, you're cooked, bro. Like, these characters are not gonna do much for you. Sunday literally revived Jingyuin. He literally revived him. If it wasn't for Sunday, Jingyuin would be irrelevant in HSR's MOC topic. Like, nobody would talk about Jingyuin without Sunday. So I can't stand when people bring up these DPS characters, these washed DPS units, as if they can do really well on their own, when that's just not the truth. Without some of these support characters, they literally cannot do anything.
being allergic to having a better game. When people critique Elden Ring, people might disagree, but they're always open to the idea of improving the game, even though it literally won Game of the Year and is considered one of the greatest games of all time. I play 5 gacha games right now, and I play them all free to play. I do not own any monthly.
You gotta remember, bro, when it comes to these gacha players, they don't play anything else outside of Hoyoverse games. Not even gacha players. When it comes to Hoyoverse players, they don't play anything else outside of Hoyoverse games. If the game isn't made by Hoyoverse, they're not gonna play it. They only play Hoyoverse games. That's why they don't know what inspiration is. If another game is very similar to Genshin Impact, they call it a direct copy. For example, Wuthering Waves. They don't know what inspiration is. They don't know what a true action RPG game is. They don't know what good storytelling is. They don't know anything about that because the only game they played in their entire life ever since they came out their mother's womb is Hoyoverse games. That's all they fucking played.
Passes or battle passes. Some might say I should be the only motherfucker getting praised. I recently got into a heated disagreement with a good friend of mine over comparing Star Rail to Fate Grand Order. We're still friends because any adult with brain cells knows you can disagree with someone and still get along as good friends. Up until this year, I thought that was common knowledge, but I'm digressing. That conversation inspired me to write a video about how Star Rail seems to have convinced people that they're good at a strategy game when in fact they're good at spinning the wheel. So keeping with the theme of my last video, let's talk about what turn-based games are actually like. Now, as with my last video, my goal isn't to attack people for enjoying Star Rail. I also play the game daily, which I have my reasons for, despite the first two videos talking about it fairly.
My thing is, if you like Honkai Star Rail, I literally don't care. And if you like the game, if you still play the game, do what you got to do, man. I don't care. My thing is okay, if somebody says, all right, Honkai Star Rail needs a lot of work, the developers need to get their shit together and they need to fix this game. If your response to that argument, if your response to that feedback or critique is, well, I love Honkai Star Rail, so your opinion or your feedback is invalid, that's when that's a problem. And that's like the issue when it comes to the HSR community. It's like whenever you're actually bringing up valid critique, you're bringing up valid issues that the game has, the response from most of these people is, I like the game. I still enjoy the game, so why are you talking about this? Like, they don't actually counter your argument. They're just like, well, I still enjoy the game. So, like, they don't really counter your argument whatsoever. It's like, as long as they're enjoying the game, your criticism, your feedback, whatever you say about the game, doesn't matter because they love the game. That's my issue. But if you like the game for what it is and whatever, I don't care. It's just that if you're just going to sit here and gatekeep the game from improving itself, if you're going to gatekeep the developers from actually fixing their game, that was a huge thunder right there. I apologize for that. Why am I apologizing for thunder? Anyways, if you're going to sit here and gatekeep the developers from fixing the game, if you're going to gatekeep players who actually want the game to be good, you're the problem.
Fairly negatively. Also keeping in line with my first video, my intention is to discuss something that I see as an issue and use examples to back up why I think the way I do. Since last time I was speaking very broadly about the big four, I couldn't logically tackle systems unique to the genre of open world or turn-based. This video will serve as a more specific look at the latter. In this video, we will go over 3 turn-based systems that when done correctly produce amazing turn-based games, from gachas like Girls Frontline 2, Fate Grand Order, and Nimbus Company, to non-gachas such as XCOM 2, Slay the Spire, and the Persona games, and how Star Rail has managed to miss the mark and butcher these systems in the name of money, RNG, and just poor design choices. We'll be using examples from both inside and outside the gacha genre, since being a gacha game does not make it exempt from turn-based critique, especially when Hoyoverse is a multi-billion-dollar company, yet some of these turn-based games are made by small teams if not just a single developer. At the end,
And that's the thing too. It's like, that's the main reason why we're always bringing up, hey, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. The reason why we're always bringing that up is because you have these smaller companies that are making games that are way better than HSR, and it's actually embarrassing. This is Hoyoverse we're talking about. These guys have so much fucking money, it's not even funny. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of resources. So why are they struggling with the most basic things that other games already implemented in their game? For example, a skip button. Like, if they're struggling this much with the skip button, that says a lot. And I'm not even going to say they're struggling. It's more like they're simply refusing to not implement a skip button, which is odd. It's weird. It's just extremely weird how Hoyoverse making tons of money, $99 million from Genshin Impact that was just on mobile, and you guys can't implement a skip button?
I'll try
Pathetic.
to address some counter arguments and clarify my points, but of course, if you disagree, let me know in a constructive way so that people can discuss these topics rather than fighting about them. The reception to my last video was incredibly positive, so hopefully this video will be even better. With all that said, let's talk about why I consider Star Rail an insult to turn-based games. First, let's go over some of the systems that Star Rail has and my issues with them. I'm going to assume that you're familiar with the general combat of Star Rail, so I won't dive too deep into explaining its systems. That way I can talk more about the issues with those systems. Let's start by talking about type weaknesses. To be clear, I'm talking about when an enemy has elements above their toughness bar, indicating which elements
I'm liking his video so far. He sounds very intelligent. He sounds very smart.
Reduce their toughness and cause them to become broken. So what is the point of type weakness? Generally speaking, weaknesses are a way to make fights more engaging, as it makes the player think more about how to approach each fight. Oftentimes, the player also comes with weaknesses, meaning the fight isn't just about what you're fighting, but also whether the enemy can exploit any potential gaps in your lineup. A great example of type weaknesses in games is Pokemon. Now, I know this isn't a gacha game, but hear me out for just a second. As most people know, all Pokemon move.
You see, this is what I'm talking about. When you're playing so many games, this is what you can do. You can make a video and you can talk about other games and you can compare those other games to Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact or Zone Zero. This is why it's important to, you know, play, like, I wouldn't say it's important to play a lot of games, but it's important to not only play one game. If you're only playing one game your entire fucking life, you're pretty much restricting yourself from thinking outside the box. You're restricting yourself from you're pretty much in the infinite Tsukuyomi. That's all I can say. You're in the infinite Tsukuyomi, and it's hard for you to actually compare the game that you're playing to other games because you're only playing one game. And that's exactly why most of these Genshin Impact players, these Honkai Star players, are accepting the bare minimum because they believe that these, like HSR and Genshin Impact, they think that these games set the standard. They think that because the game is making a lot of money, it set the standard. HSR and Genshin Impact is the new standard to them. So whenever they see us criticizing the game, they're like, no, you're wrong. You know, you're doing this just to rage bait or whatever. But it's like, no, dude, it's just a fact. This is literally the truth. If you play any other game but Genshin Impact and HSR, you can literally see the flaws in all of these games that Hoyoverse is making. All it takes is for you to simply lift your controller, take a controller, go to the Play Store. I mean, not PlayStation, not Play Store, but the PlayStation Store, and download other games and actually play them. That's all it takes.
Have an element, and Pokemon have elemental weaknesses. Let's take a look at this dynamic by taking a look at two of the Elite Four in Pokemon Emerald. The second fight is against Phoebe and her lineup of ghost Pokemon. Now, since we
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I never played this game before. Never played this.
want to be prepared, we need to bring something that can deal with ghost types. Looking at ghost matchups, we can see that our best options are to use ghost moves or dark moves. We now need to consider that if we bring a ghost type ourselves, we will also take double damage, since we also have weaknesses. This means that we would prefer to find a non-ghost type who knows a ghost move, which comes with its own problems, or bring a dark type, though we may need a better strategy to deal with Sableye. Since we need the same team for the whole Elite Four, we can't just bring 6 Dark or Ghost Pokemon. Up next is Glacier, with her lineup of Water and Ice Pokemon. This presents a slightly different problem, where all of her Pokemon are Ice, but since 3 come with Water as well, Fire Pokemon are not able to have a lot of presence against her. Considering our previous fight, we could choose to bring someone like Banette or Dusclops, who are Ghost Pokemon that can also learn Will-O-Wisp, a Fire move. This means they can help in the fight against Phoebe, while also providing some fire coverage against Glacier, without carrying the weakness against water moves. Or instead, we could look into its other weaknesses, being fighting.
Now the thing is, I don't know. Like I hear where he's coming from because he's talking about Pokemon. I never played the game, but I understand where he's coming from. This goes back to innovation. Like the company, when it comes to Hoyoverse, they're not innovative, right? Because there's nothing wrong with you taking inspiration from another video game and tweaking it and applying it to your own game. That's what that's literally creativity. Like, you're being creative. You're thinking outside the box, and that's you being innovative. They take, let's say, what he's talking about right here, Pokemon. Let's say Honkai Star Rail, they did exactly what Pokemon did, but they tweaked it. And then once they tweaked what Pokemon did, they applied it to their own game. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. You're being creative. You're being innovative. So literally nothing wrong with that. But for HSR, it's like their element weakness type, he's pretty much saying that it's just flawed. It's really flawed. And when you compare, you know, the element weakness type to multiple other turn-based games like HSR, the way they executed it was just horrible compared to other games.
rock, and steel. As you can hopefully see, fights aren't just about bringing the biggest, strongest thing. It's about checking what the Elite Four has and how you can best prepare to fight against them. Pokemon has this risk-reward gameplay that encourages you to come prepared, and you are rewarded for doing so. It's not a recommendation, it's a core principle that makes the player feel accomplished when they're able to overcome the opposition, not through gambling and spending money, but through skill expression and preparation. And for anyone saying, nah, just use Master Ball on Rayquaza, let's just remember the Elite Four is level 46 to 58. If we were 12 levels above the enemies in MOC 12, since you catch Rayquaza at level 70, it would also be a joke. And vice versa, if the Elite Four was level 70, Rayquaza wouldn't just be sweeping every time. Speaking of Memory of Chaos, we can pretend that the enemies have weaknesses, but in reality, these no longer matter. You just bring Firefly, Rappa, Acheron, Boothill, and others to just implant or straight out ignore weaknesses. That level of engagement and prep needed for a boss just isn't there anymore. Adding on to that, the fact we as the player have no weaknesses, there really isn't a reason to not bring these units. And knowing Star Rail, the issue will only get worse. As a side note, a game I mentioned last week, Heaven Burns Red, also does not have weaknesses on the player's side. However, resistances are vital, since if you use a unit that deals slash damage against an enemy with slash resistance, not only do you deal significantly less damage, but you are physically unable to fill up your OD gauge. You may be wondering, what is the OD gauge and why is that important? Well, to talk about that, we need to address another problem with Star Rail, and that is the speed mechanic. I feel like people don't talk about the issues with speed enough. Now, most turn-based games follow a simple formula of you attack, opponent attacks, and this back and forth continues until the end of battle. This is the case for many of the original Final Fantasy games.
I'm going to speed up this
Persona
video.
games, and we even see it in gacha
I don't want to
games
take too
like
long,
Fate
guys.
Grand Order, SDSGC, and Reverse 1999. Admittedly, that can be somewhat boring, although it's worth noting these games will aim to make up for that through various other combat features and design choices. Speed is not inherently bad as a stat, and the previously mentioned Pokemon also does have speed as a stat. So why is it a problem in Star Rail? Well, it comes in two forms: the acquisition of speed and the modification of speed. So what does that even mean? Let's look at the acquisition of speed, which refers to how we increase our base speed outside of battle. This is mostly done through relics, either from a set bonus, substat, or boost main stat. The issue is not just the fact that relics are all RNG, but also how you're required to meet specific values that are not in your control, but that allow you to have multiple cycles where you can attack twice before the enemy can even go once. This is certain breakpoints, such as 134 speed, as this is the lowest that you can have to move twice on turn 1, and over the course of 15 cycles will provide 5 extra turns, with 136 speed giving 6 extra turns. The problem is even more exaggerated on DPS characters, since while you only usually look to hit 134, you also need large amounts of crit rate, crit damage, and some attack percent. Of course, break DPS aren't quite as hard to build unless your name is Boothill, but this problem then gets even worse when we move on to the second part of it, the modification of speed. This refers to the ways that speed can be modified in battle. This can be done in many ways, such as skills, ultimates, and light cone passives. The issue here should be quite obvious, but this core mechanic of the game that is already gatekept behind RNG is now being further gatekept behind money. People keep pretending that everyone has an S5 dance, when many people don't even have one of them. And unless everyone has forgotten, after Danhung's banner in February of 2024, this was not a rate up 4-star until Aglaya's banner nearly a full year later.
That is insane, bro. I did not even realize that. That's crazy, man. That is actually insane. Wow. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. But I get where he's coming from. It's like you have some of these characters. Is there a character that can apply speed buffs to your allies? Let me know in the comment section down below. But if there is a character that can apply speed buffs to your allies, you know, like why it's going to be really hard for you to even skip that character, and that's where the FOMO comes in. It's like they implement these characters that have broken kits, and then when you summon for these characters, 3 patches later, that character is just like they're just not viable anymore. Silver Wolf all over again, man.
This also assumes you're even pulling on the weapon banner, which if you're free to play, I don't know where you find the pulls to be pulling weapons. Getting back on track, my point is that we have yet another mechanic that could have been something fun to experiment with and have multiple builds where we want more speed for some bosses, more raw damage for others. But instead, the solution is just have both, Omega lol, and this game expects you to have both. We see hypercarry teams that use Robin and Sunday that just don't allow the enemy to have a turn, which also requires speed tuning, which continues to compound the problem even more. Speed tuning is not skill-based. It's not some smart solution to a problem. It's a mandatory optimization locked behind RNG to artificially get you to play the game more. While getting a zero cycle does 100% take a level of skill, let's not pretend it doesn't also require monetary investment and amazing relic RNG to even be possible. I won't use Pokemon as an example of how to do speed well, since we spoke about it previously. If you're familiar with EVs, IVs, and nature, then hopefully you'll understand that that system is infinitely better. So let's continue where we left off with Heaven Burns Red. So earlier I mentioned it was important to consider the enemy's resistance, because if you attack an enemy that resists your damage type, you can't fill up the OD gauge. This is a bar that fills up when you attack the enemy, and outside of some specific skills and buffs, you will fill this up the fastest through basic attacks. The way you generally play this game is by stalling out the enemy until you can generate lots of skill points to allow your team to funnel buffs into your main DPS. You can build up to 3 bars of OD, at which point
I never played this game before, by the way. I don't know what this is.
you will gain 1, 2, or 3 additional turns based on the amount consumed, and 5, 12, or 20 additional skill points. This is then when you would stack on your final buffs and delete the enemy health bar. Notice again how this requires you to interact with the game's mechanics to succeed, and encourages boss knowledge that can't just be ignored with money or amazing luck. This game does have a gearing system, but there is significantly less RNG, and building the OD gauge is not buffed through substats, but through equipping gear that you craft, which will always have the passive you selected, not one of 2 different sets like in Star Rail. While I would love to glaze the game even more, this is not the video for that, and we still have one more topic I want to talk about. It's time to cover boss mechanics. Just like with type weaknesses, boss mechanics are a way to make fights feel more engaging and interesting for the player. I think the best way to talk about this is to give examples of what Star Rail calls mechanics, then talk about how other turn-based games do actual mechanics. We're going to start by breaking down the first phase of Incarnation of Strife on MOC12. Also, I just want to say, if you've 3-starred MOC12 against this boss and you don't even know the mechanics I'm going to talk about, that perfectly exemplifies my issue with the lack of boss mechanics, since new shiny units can just ignore this, while older units, even if you play to the mechanics,
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That is a good point. It's like, for example, if you have, like, let's say the Herda, like when you have these broken characters, these new broken characters, you can just ignore the boss's mechanic because you have that new shiny unit. So you don't let that new character does not care whatsoever. But when you're using old characters, it's like, damn, now you have to go through all these fucking mechanics. It's dope, but at the same time, it's like, can you beat the boss? That's where the problem comes. It's like, can you beat the boss? You know what I'm saying? Like, can you get 3 stars with that old character? Can you do enough damage? That's where the problems come in. That's where all these issues come in, and that's why they need to fix power creep in this fucking game. They need to fix it because it is a serious issue. Whenever they release a new unit, that unit is always OP. Like, there hasn't been one time in HSR where they would release a character that is so fucking dog shit to the point where nobody just summons for that character. Like, when was the last time they summoned for a 5-star character, right? Limited 5-star character that was absolutely dog shit and nobody summoned for that unit? I'll wait. I'll wait. A character that's like below B tier, a character that's below A tier. I don't know. And I'm not talking about the standard 5-star characters. I'm talking about the new limited 5-star characters. Every single time they release these new units, they're always fucking broken. 4 patches later, they're not viable anymore. Because guess what? You have these new units who are coming in, pretty much replacing them. You guys remember back in version 2.7, everybody was screaming out the top of their lungs that Sunday is going to be the next best support unit in the fucking game. He is still a good support unit, but look at Tribby. Tribby came out of nowhere, fucking cleaned house, bro. When is this gonna stop, bro? When is this gonna stop? And that's why every single time I see videos of people saying, oh, this next support character will break your account, I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Like, how many times are we gonna do this, bro? It's the same cycle over and over again. Like, don't you guys see the cycle? We're in version 3.1. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. We were saying the same thing about Silverwolf. He's gonna break the game. Look at us now. Look at Silverwolf now. Nobody cares about her, bro. Zila is broken. Where's Zila at? Jingyuan, oh my gosh, he's insane. You guys remember when Jingyuan dropped? Everybody was going crazy over Jingyuan, and then bro was just washed until Sunday came in and just revived him. It's the same cycle every single time, guys. They're going to release these characters. They're going to be broken as hell for like 3 patches or 4 updates. And then after that, they fall off extremely hard because of these new bosses in MOC. Now, sure, you can say, well, I don't really play MOC, so I don't really care. Well, Yeah, you can say that, but at the same time, the problem is still there. For the people who are actually playing MOC, this is a huge issue. It's actually ridiculous. Plus, if you're fighting new bosses for like materials, like let's say the new facial boss, the new facial boss, some people can't even beat that boss with old characters. Like they're actually bringing this power creep issue into like like I wouldn't say open world bosses, but they're bringing it into these bosses that give you materials in order for you to build these characters. It's getting ridiculous. Like it's actually getting ridiculous and outrageous to the point where you literally have to get these new characters to pretty much have the opportunity to get these materials to level up your characters and at the same time clear MOC. Like you pretty much have to get new characters to clear content in this game.
Not clear without insane investment, both in terms of relics and duplicates and light cones. Also, support power creep is still power creep. Stop saying that your Jing Yuan cleared, when in reality, your Sunday and Robin or RMC dragged his lifeless corpse.
Yeah, I will say support characters, they can't like support characters can power creep each other, but it gets to a point. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like when it comes to DPS characters and support units, DPS units suffer way more when it comes to power creep because their job is to deal damage, right? And if they can't do that, then why even use them? But when it comes to support characters, their job is to essentially amplify that DPS unit. And if they can do that, well, they're doing pretty well. And if they still can't do that, well, they still have the opportunity to, heal you or give you an additional turn. For example, Robin. Like Robin giving you an additional turn is just crack. You know what I'm saying? Sparkle, even though she fell off, she can still give you more skill points. So when it comes to support characters, they can become a victim they can become a victim to power creep, but it's not as strong as DPS units because DPS characters, their job is to literally deal damage. And if they cannot do that, why even use them?
Corpse to the finish line. With that said, let's break down Strife. In the first phase, Lance of Fury will spawn 4 enemies that are copies of your team. Your team will have their health cut in half, and damaging their respective clone will restore a portion of this missing health. This would be an interesting mechanic, aside from the fact it doesn't actually matter. Your goal is to kill everything in front of you, and this mechanic doesn't change that. It doesn't change how you play, especially when the strategy of kill the little guys, then burst the big guy is the same for Swarm, Senior Staff Team Leader, who's just a bigger Automation Grizzly, Fury Praetor, Automation Gatekeeper, Pule, and many, many more. More than half
Kool is such a I hate Kool. Whoever designed that boss. Let's continue. I was about to say something crazy, but let's continue.
It's like if I hand you a
That
steak
boss
and
is
say you
so
can eat it,
trash.
but on one condition, you have to chew. Like, yeah, no shit. If I don't, I'll choke and potentially die. You're not asking me to do anything I wasn't already going to do. With that in mind, let's keep going and see if there's anything else. All realms leveled, all legions to dust. World splitting spine, survivors unto dead waters, pyre of high graves, and ruination of night and light are all just basic attacks of various types. They don't do anything except deal damage like any other enemy. This is fine, since even bosses should have regular attacks. We also have 2 talents that I will summarize. Flawless Protector is what provides the boss with war armor, which is the 7 stacks next to the boss's HP. Whenever you hit the boss, 1 stack is removed. After the boss takes their turn, all stacks are refreshed. When the stack count reaches 0, the boss takes damage, and the unit that removed that last stack regenerates some energy. While that sounds great and all on paper, this mechanic is still just hit the boss a lot. The second talent is Valorous Death before Glorious Return. After the boss uses Calamity Eternal, the boss gains 12 stacks of Titanic Corpus, which when depleted, will cause the boss to take damage, delay their next action, and regenerate some energy for the team. Your team is all given a stack of Glory, which increases damage dealt and energy regenerate. To reduce those stacks, you hit the boss, but now you reduce 2 stacks. So in other words, he has 6 instead of 7. See how this still not has changed the fight in any way? Sure, you can save your Pillar and Aventurine ult to use on the same turn as your DPS ult, but even if you could save like 2 full cycles to optimization, that doesn't matter when it still takes you 8 cycles. And this is only one side. It feels so unrewarding when I can explain these mechanics and take advantage of them, yet if you just pull the new unit and throw money at the problem, you can literally auto the fight and get a faster clear. So how, in my opinion, could we make bosses have more meaningful mechanics? Well, since I know most people don't want to read mechanics and have to use more than 7 brain cells to learn a boss, let's look at a boss that brings together all 3 systems we've spoken about today, which, if it was a gacha game, you could kill the boss with raw damage, but by following the mechanics, you can use a whole list of restrictions on yourself and still clear. Let's talk about Madarame from Persona 5 Royal. This is a 2-phase fight at the end of the second palace. In the first phase, you fight 5 paintings, with the gimmick that if they don't all die on the same turn, they respawn with a portion of their max health. So just bring AoE, right? Well, actually, no. You see, the problem is that all parts have a different weakness, and since weakness plays a huge role in this game, allowing you to use baton pass, a mechanic that rewards the player for finding enemy weaknesses and provides additional damage, this also encourages you to prepare for the fight by having coverage over a lot of elements. Instead of focusing entirely on the best personas, you're given the tools to build multiple teams to find the best solution to the presented problem. In this phase, the eyes are there to buff the boss and debuff the player. The nose deals magical damage and the mouth deals physical damage. What's more important is the attacks they all share. They all have a chance to cover one party member in ink, making them vulnerable to all damage types. The other move is the ability to revive fallen pieces of the painting. This adds another layer to the fight, since the boss will focus less on attacking and more on reviving itself, shifting your strategy from just kill everything in front of me to weaken all the pieces, then take them out in a single turn. Moving to the second phase, the boss summons 4 clones that will have a single target attack and an attack buff. They all have different weaknesses based on their color, with the boss himself having no weaknesses. Unlike in Star Rail, these enemies can't just be cleared with AoE trash damage. You need to target their weaknesses to make use of baton pass yet again to be able to take down the boss. Focusing the summons won't end the fight, but focusing the boss will cause your party to fall by the hands of those summons, requiring a more nuanced approach to the fight that balances these two aspects. Hopefully this has been an insightful view on my issues with Star Rail being a turn-based game, but not actually developing any of these pre-existing systems, instead butchering them and making them all feel redundant or as a way to extract more money and artificial playtime from the consumer. Now, to address some counter-arguments before we go.
100%. Like, yo, this guy's cooking, man. It's like the problem, and here's the thing. The problem with HSR is that at the end of the day, it's a gacha game. And that's the reason why they're not going to innovate when it comes to their mechanics, when it comes to the story. Like, they're not going to innovate because they can always use the excuse that, yes, we are a gacha company. This is a gacha game. So you should always have low expectations for our games because they're gacha games. They can use that excuse all the time. And that's why they're not going to innovate. That's why they're not going to make meaningful content. And they're not going to make good mechanics that actually require you to use a brain. It's a gacha game. And they can use that excuse many times as they want. And when you look at these games that he's comparing HSR to, those games aren't gacha games. They're not gacha games. And that's why those games, like the developers, they actually have to meet players' expectations because they don't have an excuse. They can't say, well, this is an action RPG game. They can't use that excuse because they don't give a fuck if it's an action RPG game. I spent $60 on this game. This game better be good. And that's another issue when it comes to gacha games, right? Yeah, they're free to play, but at the same time, yeah, since you can download the game for free and you can play the game, sure, that's dope. But at the same time, that is also another excuse that players will always make for these developers for Hoyoverse. You know, it's a free game. Why are you complaining? You know what I'm saying? Like whenever, like you guys know, whenever you're on the internet, you're on Twitter, whatever, and you're saying, you know, Hoyoverse, get your shit together, man. These games, they're just not good, and you need to, you know, meet our expectations. And people are like, what expectations? It's a free game. They don't have to meet your expectations. Stop being greedy and stupid. It's like that's the problem when it comes to these gacha games. It's like since they are free to play, not free to play, but since you can download the game for free and you can play it, players are always going to use the excuse that yes, this is a free game and the devs don't have to meet your expectations because it is a free game. You have to be grateful. Like that's literally what it comes down to. Like the developers have so many fucking dumbass excuses to not innovate and make their game better. They're just hiding behind a gacha wall.
Pokemon and Persona aren't gacha games. You're right, but Hoyoverse isn't an indie developer and has more than enough money to improve their game. Notice how they
Exactly. I'm glad that he said this. This is exactly what I just said. They have so many resources to improve their game. What's stopping them? What's stopping them from improving the game? If they're if they're gonna constantly update the game because this is a live service game, they're constantly updating the game, giving out, you know, new updates. If you guys are gonna release new updates back to back every month and the game is not improving, why release these new updates? Why? The whole point of quality of life updates is to literally improve the quality of the game so that players can still play the game. If the quality is stagnating, players are complaining about the same thing over and over again. then what are you doing? Like, what are these developers doing? Like, your whole job is to manage the game and make sure that the game meets the players' expectations, and of course, make money as well, right? Of course, make money. That's like the number one most important part when it comes to these companies. When it comes to these developers, is to make money, bro. Find the best method that's going to make players want to take out their wallets and spend money. That's literally the motto for gacha games. Find the best method for players to take out their wallets and spend money. But at the same time, don't be a fucking douchebag and milk your players without implementing updates that players wanted in the game for a long time. Make players actually want to give you money. Like, there are so many games out there where people are like, you know what? Let me give the developers some money. Let me spend some money on this game to support the game because the devs are doing a great job. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're supporting the game. But if you're sitting here giving these devs money, if you're spending money on the game and the devs are taking your money and you're spitting on your money and you're throwing it in a trash can, that's what we call disrespect. They're disrespecting your time and they're disrespecting you. And that's why whenever I see these gacha players say, "Oh, I'm spending money because, you know, I'm supporting the gate." You're not supporting shit. You're not supporting anybody. You're supporting flies. You're supporting oxygen. You're literally supporting nothing. The devs are looking at you and they're laughing at you because you fell for their trap. Guys, we gotta wake up from the infinite Tsukuyomi, man. We gotta wake up. Too many people are sleeping. We gotta wake up.
News about meaningful improvements after Wuthering Waves 2.0, and even Chinese fans are complaining. These improvements aren't being announced because they made poor decisions and feel the players deserve better. It's because they were at risk of losing money. Pokemon and Persona aren't mobile games. Also correct. But besides the fact that Persona is also on Nintendo Switch, which really isn't much better than a modern phone, Pokemon was made on hardware that was already outdated by the—
It's actually embarrassing how Nintendo Switch, like, it's just like, oh my gosh. I don't even remember the last time I played a Nintendo Switch game. But holy shit, the quality of their games is insane. But they do make good games like Smash Bros.
the time you were born.
Bayonetta.
So being on mobile is not an excuse. Also, we see in Wuthering Waves, they're implementing features that are unique to PC because they acknowledge there's a PC audience. Why can't Star Rail do the same? Not everyone wants to deal with mechanics, and that's fair. But that's why I mentioned Madarama. He's a boss where, in theory, you can ignore the mechanics and just be so strong that he dies anyway. But if you choose to fight him on the game's terms, you are greatly rewarded for doing so. We don't need to implement mechanics that make it so that you can't enjoy the fight by just slamming your keyboard, but implement mechanics so that people who are willing to go the extra mile and learn them can get equal results with less. Star Rail is a casual game. Maybe I need a gambling addiction to understand this, but I play 5 gacha games right now and I play them all free to play. I do not own any monthly passes or battle passes. Some might say I should be the only motherfucker getting praised, but last I checked, casual games are meant to be relaxing experiences with a little grinding and brain dead.
The casual excuse, like I made a whole video talking about this, debunking the whole, it's a casual game. I made a whole video debunking that argument. Those players, the people who are saying it's a casual game, they're not casual players. They're fucking gatekeepers. Because if the game was okay, if you were a casual player, why are you so worried about people criticizing the game so that the devs can improve the game and everyone's experience with the game be a lot better? Why is that bothering you as a casual player? Aren't casual players supposed to not give a fuck and just play the game for what it is? You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole casual player shit is just dumb as fuck. Like, oh, it's a casual game. The dumbest argument ever, because if it was an actual, if the game was a casual game, why are so many people complaining about MOC and how bad power creep is? If it was a casual game, why are old characters just not as strong anymore and they're not viable anymore? Why is that an issue if it's a casual game? If this was a casual game, any character could be used. Any character could be used at any level in this game. But that's just not the case. So no, it's not a casual game. Like, are you gonna get on a Honkai Star Rail and just, I don't know, walk around, sit in the fucking train and listen to music? Like, honestly, I don't understand some of these casual players, man. It's like, to me, I'm gonna be real with y'all. If you're seeing that you're a casual player in any of these Hoiverse games, I just think that you do absolutely nothing. Like, you literally don't do anything in these games, because if you're saying that you play the game casually. What are you doing every day when you're playing the game? What are you doing? Like, are you just logging in, getting these daily rewards, playing the events, and just logging off? Is that it? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm really curious. Like, what are you doing when you're playing these games? What are you doing? And are you actually enjoying the game for for just simply logging in and I don't know, listening to music, playing some, I don't know, event that's just I don't know, man. I don't know. The whole casual thing is just really dumb to me, to be honest, bro. Like, there's nothing wrong with casual players, but when they say that, oh, it's a casual game, so therefore your feedback or your opinion on the game is invalid, is fucking stupid. Because if you were a casual player, you wouldn't care to begin with.
Content. Not hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of investment and 3 endgame modes that aren't skill-based almost at all, and instead of giving the player any real skill expression, you just throw money at it. And for the slop comments like, well, I'm having fun, sounds like a skill issue, sounds like broke to me, etc.
Oh my god, dude, this guy is literally taking the words out my mouth, bro. I literally just said this every single time I bring up an argument, and the response is, well, I'm having fun with the game. Who asked? I didn't ask if you had fun with the game. I don't fucking care. If you're enjoying the game, congratulations. I don't care. The point still stands. All right? You saying that you enjoy the game doesn't really counter my argument whatsoever. You're just saying that you enjoy the game. That's literally it. That doesn't prove a single thing. Tell you, man, I don't know what happened to these people's brain cells. It just disappeared.
Play the games you want to play. But can we stop being allergic to having a better game? When people critique Elden Ring, people might disagree, but they're always open to the idea of improving the game, even though it literally won Game of the Year and is considered one of the greatest games of all time. So let's stop pretending Star Rail has no issues, voice our opinions, and if we agree, perfect, let's give that feedback. And if we disagree, let's discuss why it's not good and how we can find a better solution. Anyway, that's enough for me. This video has already gone on much longer than I originally planned. Thank you for sticking to the end, and I hope to see you next time. Stay safe.
W video. W video. I'm gonna go ahead and like this video. W video, man. Hey, he stated a lot of facts, man. That was a good video. He presented himself really well. He was well articulated. Like, that was a really good video. But you guys see where I'm coming from, right? And this is a perfect example as of to why you should play other games but gacha games. And I'm gonna be real with you guys. If you're only playing gacha games, I feel bad for you, bro. Like, go touch some grass, and seriously, like, go do something else in your life. If you're only playing gacha games, it just shows that, like, you can spend so much time playing something that's actually worth playing. Like, imagine playing a video game where you don't have to spend money to enjoy it. Imagine playing a video game where you don't have to spend money to progress. Just imagine, man. Just imagine. But unfortunately, when it comes to these gacha games, it's like, you gotta spend money, bro. If you want to beat MOC 12, hey, make sure you get Herda. If you have 0 stellar jades, I'm sorry, bro. Gotta spend that money. That's just how these gacha games are, man. It's like, whenever they release a new character, they literally rework the entire fucking game for that specific unit. Like, they literally increase the HP for these enemies just so that old units can struggle, and you take out your wallet and spend money to get the new character that can do enough damage to get rid of that new enemy, to get rid of that new boss. It's just absolutely pathetic, man. But once again, great video. Him, including references like, Pokemon, Persona, multiple other games to prove his point as of to why Honkai Star Rail is an insult to turn-based games is really good, man. This really proves everyone's point as of to why Honkai Star Rail is just an absolute embarrassment, and why the developers they let everyone down, man. They literally let everyone down. Oh, it's raining hard outside, guys, so I'm going to end this video, but they let everyone down. Like, when we look at the game back in version 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, completely different game. Completely different game. It was actually very, very good. But when we look at the game right now, like, it's like the developers, they packed their bags and they fucking left. And it seems like there's like a kid who's in charge. I don't fucking know, but I don't know what's going on in their headquarters. The game is just a complete flop right now. And I'm just waiting for version 3.2 to see where the game is going to go. It's already not looking good. But if the developers don't fix the game by version 3.2, adios.